Israel declared a state of war and launched airstrikes on Gaza Strip following a surprise rocket attack by Palestinian Hamas militants, which claimed that it was only their first strike in retaliation. The Israel's military began a strike on Gaza. The military said dozens of IDF fighters jets are currently striking a number of targets belonging to the Hamas terrorist organization in the Gaza Strip. This came after Palestinian militants began a war against Israel. The country's defense minister said after a barrage of rockets were fired and fighters from the Palestinian enclave infiltrated Israel. At least 2 people were killed in Israel, officials said, while Israel's defense minister Yoav Gallant said Palestinian militant groups Hamas and launched a war against the state of Israel. Israel and Palestine have been in conflict for decades, with both sides using violence to achieve their goals. The conflict is rooted in complex historical, religious and political issues, and it dates back to history. The conflict had its roots in the 19th century when the Zionist movement began to advocate for a Jewish homeland in Palestine. At the time, Palestine was part of the Ottoman Empire and was mostly inhabited by the Arabs. The conflict intensified in the 20th century as waves of Jewish immigrants arrived in Palestine after the Holocaust. In 1947, the United Nations voted to partition Palestine into 2 states, one Jewish and one Arab. However, the Arab states rejected the plan and invaded Israel after it declared independence in 1948. In 1967, Israel defeated the Arab states in the Six-Day War and captured the West Bank, Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem and the Golan Heights. In 1973, the Arab states launched a surprise attack on Israel in the Yom Kippur War. In the 1980s, the Palestinian uprising known as the First Intifada began. In 1990s, there was a period of relative calm in the conflict. However, the peace process stalled in 2000 due to disagreements over the status of Jerusalem and the right of return for Palestinian refugees. In 2000, the second violent intifada began. In 2014, Israel launched a military operation in Gaza in response to rocket attacks from Hamas. The operation lasted for 50 days and resulted in deaths of over 2,000 Palestinians and 70 Israelis. In 2021, Israel and Hamas fought an 11-day war in Gaza. The war was sparked by a dispute over the eviction of Palestinian families from the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood of East Jerusalem. The war resulted in deaths of over 250 Palestinians and 13 Israelis. What we need to understand here is that one of the main reasons for the conflict is the dispute over the land. Let me make it clear that this is not the core reason, but surely is one of the main reasons that led to the chain reaction of all the violence. Israel claims the entire area of historical Palestine, while the Palestinians claim the right to a state on the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Another major reason for the conflict is the issue of Jerusalem. Both Israelis and Palestinians claim the city as their capital. As of now, the total number of deaths throughout the Israeli-Palestinian conflict over the time is difficult to determine precisely, as there is no single authoritative source for this information, but various estimates put the total death toll at between 200,000 to 250,000 people since the start of the conflict in the late 1940s. But let me remind you, this is just a rough estimation. It will be much more than this. It has been difficult to track the exact number of casualties, and it has been a long ongoing conflict. The current violence is all over the news. A tense ceasefire is between Israel and Hamas, the Palestinian militant groups that controls the Gaza Strip. The ceasefire was brokered by Egypt on August 7, 2023, after a 3-day flare-up in the violence that killed at least 49 Palestinians and 5 Israelis. The latest round of violence was sparked by Israeli airstrikes on Gaza in response to rocket attacks from Hamas. The Israeli military said that airstrikes were targeting Hamas military sites, but they also killed a number of civilians. Hamas responded by firing hundreds of rockets into Israel. According to Al Jazeera live updates, Israel authorities confirmed Palestinian fighters have taken control over 3 Israelite settlements at Gaza Strip. Israel army has also launched air, land, sea strike on Gaza. Palestinian armed group Islamic Jihad says its fighters have joined Hamas offensive against Israel. Israel has also announced Swords of Iron operation against Palestinian armed groups in response to Palestinian attacks. Al Jazeera's Sarah Khairat reporting from occupied East Jerusalem. The previous number reported by emergency services was 22, but now the Israeli government has confirmed that the number of Israelis killed has risen to at least 40. More than 750 Israelis have been injured. Adding to that, numbers are likely to continue to increase. According to the live updates, intensity of aerial bombardment in Gaza growing bit by bit following the surprise rocket attack by Palestinian Hamas militants. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in a video statement following the attacks that the country is at war.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה, לא במבצע, לא בסבבים, במלחמה. הבוקר חמאס פתח במתקפת פתע רצחני נגד מדינת ישראל ונגד אזרחיה. אנחנו בתוך זה משעות הבוקר המוקדמות. כינסתי את ראשי מערכת הביטחון. הנחיתי קודם כל לטהר את היישובים מהמחבלים שחדרו פנימה. הפעולה הזאת מתבצעת בשעות הללו. במקביל הוריתי לבצע גיוס מילואים נרחב ולהשיב מלחמה שערה בעוצמה ובהיקף שהאויב לא הכיר. האויב ישלם מחיר שהוא לא ידע כמותו. אני קורא בינתיים לכל אזרחי ישראל להישמע בקפדנות להנחיות הצבא, להנחיות פיקוד העורף. אנחנו במלחמה ואנחנו ננצח בה.